So I'm here with Euan McTurk and his Honda Insight. Euan, it's quite a rare car to see on the road. How many is there?
Well, certainly is. There's only 230 left in the UK. Not all of them were originally destined for the UK market. There's actually been a bit of a demand for Japanese imports recently. So this particular one is the holy grail because it is a genuine UK model. It's a manual. As far as I'm aware, Honda's the only car manufacturer to ever do manual hybrids, and that does, the way the drivetrain is set up on this thing, it does give an extra few mpg, and it's also in the delightfully controversial citrus colour. Being colourblind, I love it, but you know, obviously I'm not exactly in an expert position colour-wise to tell you whether it's good or not. But yeah, very rare combination, this one.
It's an interesting colour, let's just put it that way. So you're probably glad you are colourblind in that aspect. How long have you had the car?
I've had it since the end of 2012. I actually bought it by chance because I was waiting on my other car, which is a fully electric Peugeot 106 you'll hopefully get to see at some point in the future. It was away for a battery upgrade, which was taking a little while, and I thought, well, this is another machine that I'd always been interested in, and it was just a chance lunch break, check eBay, see what there was, and this one was there. It was down in Doncaster, so I was based in Dundee at the time, and I phoned them up straight away and said I have to have this, and they very kindly held on to it for me, which was really good of them. And yeah, I've had trouble-free motoring ever since. It was one of my better purchasing decisions.
So how many miles is on the clock?
This one's actually quite young mileage-wise. It's only done about 106,000 miles, which is, it's nothing to these machines. It's a 1 litre petrol with a 10 kilowatt electric motor. Normally for a 1 litre petrol you'd be expecting it to be conking out about 100,000 miles, but these machines, being hybrids with a torquey electric motor that takes a lot of the abuse off of the internal combustion engine, and being Hondas that are just indestructible anyway, they do keep going. In fact, there's a motoring journalist, Johnny Smith, he just recently sold an identical machine to this, same colour and everything, and it had done 320,000 miles and it was still driving like new.
320,000?
Yep, exactly.
And had he modified it at all, or was it just as out the box as far as you're aware?
His was as is. You would think as a motoring journalist he would have been a bit more adventurous with it, especially given what he did to that little Enfield, the flux capacitor. But no, he kept it in standard trim, whereas this one has had some minor modifications to it, but it's nowhere near its final form. I've got some big plans ahead for this one.
So what are your plans, and what current modifications have you done to the car?
Well, the current modifications have been done by the UK's leading Honda Insight expert, a chap in North Yorkshire called Peter Perkins. If you go on to Insight Central, that's the worldwide support network for Honda Insights, and he is, as I say, the UK's go-to man. He has improved the stock battery that was in the thing, the traction battery, so it's still nickel metal hydrides that are in there, pre-lithium ion pretty much, this car, but it's a better, slightly higher energy density, a bit more sort of a bit more power to it, really, a bit more oomph. But I've also got a little joystick on the steering wheel, which is part of the IMA CNC, the Integrated Motor Assist Command and Control, and that allows me to manually control the electric motor. So this car, obviously, as with any hybrid, the electric motor is controlled by the car's onboard electronics, and it decides, oh, now would be a good idea to start giving you a bit of extra regen or a bit of extra assist. But of course it can't see if there's a giant hill coming up, so this allows me to get more boost or more regen as I see fit, and it's really handy if you're doing long routes on motorways that you've done countless times before. I'm constantly up and down from the West Midlands to Edinburgh, and obviously there's quite a few hills on the M6 and what have you, so I know when to stock up the battery and when to deplete that to get the best sort of fuel economy. And on top of that, there's also it's now a plug-in hybrid. So there's a 13 amp plug on there, which is connected to a laptop battery charger. Again, this is one of Peter's handy boxes of tricks, and that allows me to calibrate the battery and give it a top-up charge, because nickel metal hydride does have a tendency to self-discharge, and certainly these cars, they're a bit like, I say they're a bit like Springer Spaniels, because if you don't give them regular long runs they get quite cranky, and unfortunately the traffic to get into my work down south is so horrendous. I've started commuting on an e-bike, which means this thing will sit still for a while, so it likes to have a top up before it does its epic 330 mile trek north.
So with the modifications that you've done in there, Euan, does it have a big effect on fuel economy for the better, I assume?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, my personal best on this after I had the modification done, well, pre-modification, you would have been lucky if you managed to get about 80 miles per gallon on a particularly flat motorway as an average. But between Glasgow and Dundee on an early Sunday morning, when I decided to sit behind the lorry and see just what this thing was capable of. Exactly, yes. Yeah. Did a bit of hypermileage just to see what it could do, making full use of the IMACC joystick, and it was an average over those 80 miles of hilly motorway of 101 miles per gallon.
That is very impressive, very, very impressive. So you stated earlier on that you want obviously future modifications. I know you've done a 106 conversion to electric. I assume, is it lithium or? It
is, yeah, it's lithium iron phosphate. I should point out it was actually done in Fife by an incredibly talented chap called Evan Tuer. But yeah, I mean, at the time I was still a humble student, and I still don't have my own workshop and resources, whereas he has an entire barn full of it pretty much. He's been at this for years. My intention though is to do either an LFP plug-in hybrid retrofit to this. I actually do have the cells ready for that, but recently I've been thinking, you know what, I'm actually fed up burning petrol. In comparison to my 106, this car is actually an inconvenience because you have to go out of your way to find a petrol station and queue at it, and it's a genuine faff, especially in the busy congested south, whereas with the 106 you just plug it in and it's ready for you first time every morning.
Excellent.
So actually the plan is potentially to retrofit this to full electric now. So I'm looking into that. As I say, it's annoying having the experience working in the battery industry, battery R&D and electric vehicle pack development. You can do it, it's just a case of having access to a workshop. So it may happen, it may not. I do have a keen eye on the Tesla Model 3 coming out, as does seemingly
everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. So I might join the reservation list. But then again, I wouldn't want to get rid of this. It's, as I say, it is a rare breed, and it would be a shame to stick it in a transport museum. There's no way that I'd be selling it. So yeah, potentially a fully electric upgrade en route, but in a worst case scenario, a plug-in hybrid running on some really good lithium-ion batteries, which will vastly improve fuel economy. You could just leave the thing on assist. If you're going across the central belt, you could just leave the thing on constant assist, whereas that thing would be depleted within about 5-10 miles. If you did that, this one would happily do Glasgow to Edinburgh, just plug it in at the other end.
Excellent, that's very impressive plans there. So just touching on, as you mentioned before, you work in the battery industry. You had a brief cameo appearance on Fully Charged, was it a couple of years ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we'll put a link in that down below in the video. Are you still doing your PhD at Oxford?
Oh, I've graduated now.
You graduated, well done.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Yeah, I've been based at WMG, University of Warwick, since then. So I'm a project engineer, again working on battery technology for electric vehicles, electric vehicle pack development and so on. And my speciality is taking, basic for all intents and purposes, Tesla batteries and taking the cells from them, sticking things in them and then expecting them to behave as if nothing happens, which as we know with lithium ion is easier said than done. But the information that we're getting out of this, we're looking at rapid charging protocols that will make even the most stubborn of lithium ion cell chemistries rapid charge in a matter of minutes. And that's important because as we try to improve energy density in lithium ion cells, we inevitably end up with higher amounts of heat being dissipated. There's quite often higher internal resistance, and without going into too many technical details, it means it is a bit more difficult to rapid charge them versus ones that are more power dense. In other words, they don't have quite as much energy in them, but they can dump it a lot quicker. That's what lithium iron phosphate is good for, incidentally. But the ones that we're looking at and that Tesla are looking at and so on, trying to get them to rapid charge remains a technological challenge, and that's something that we are having a serious look into just now with some exciting new techniques.
Exactly, because I mean that's the thing that's kind of holding back people with electric cars is the speed for rapid charging when you're needing a charge out and about. I know from personal experience, on a cold day like this where it's about zero, it takes a good 45 minutes to an hour to charge the car with a cold battery. So I know there is people looking into, Tesla are looking at, 500 kilowatt hours, that thing. So quite an interesting development. Yeah, so I mean, this all seems to be fairly positive. Has there been any problems that you've had with the car?
Only one, and only recently. As I said before, these are virtually indestructible machines, but they do like regular runs, or they make you pay for it. And since I've been based down south, I've started commuting on an e-bike, and as a result, this thing's been sitting still for longer periods of time prior to its epic treks north. And it sat still for a whole week and a half, and that was enough for the handbrake to seize on. So again, such is the annoyance of knowing what was wrong with it, how to fix it, but not having the tools to hand. I did have to call the breakdown team round. All it was jack it up, stick a little pole through the wheel, whack it with a hammer, and it was good to go. But what a stupid, annoying, niggly thing to have 3 wheels on your wagon. And as I say, it was purely because it had sat still for 10 days, something like that. But other than that, when it's actually running regularly, when you treat them properly, they are indestructible.
So it's more mechanical than electrical. So we're not poo-pooing electric cars. You see,
No, absolutely not.
Electric cars and their batteries are fairly strong, aren't they? So
True. I mean, in terms of electrically, I mean, this machine is actually able to get itself out of trouble courtesy of the electric system. If the petrol engine has a complete failure, the advantage of the IMA CNC joystick, which you wouldn't be able to do with a non-modified one, is that you can, when the thing's on standby, you can run the electric motor on its own. So if you find yourself suddenly out of petrol, or if there is a rare mechanical breakdown with a Honda petrol engine, and you're in a dodgy part of a country road or a motorway, you can use the electric motor and whatever battery capacity is left to get yourself out of trouble.
Excellent. I hope that you enjoyed our insight into Euan's Honda Insight. If you enjoyed the video, please like and share. If you haven't done already, please subscribe. And if you've got any comments, please put them down below. And I'll see you next time on the Scottish Leaf Owner YouTube channel. Bye for now.